Namaste, my name is Saurabh Nanda and welcome to another episode of Such Conversations Matter.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this brand new episode of Such Conversations Matter. And you guys must be thinking कि मैं कौन हूँ और ये आज यहाँ पर अलग-अलग लोग कौन हैं. So before you get confused, right? So we have today with us Saurabh Nanda, right? जो कि अभी तक जिनको आपने देखा है इंटरव्यू लेते हुए, but now he is on the hot seat. And with me I have Anurag, who happens to be a very dear close friend. और आज हम कुछ बातें करेंगे सौरभ के साथ.
Welcome Saurabh. Welcome to the 25th episode of your own podcast. So generally you take a pleasure in introducing your guests. This time it's our honor to present you. Of course people know who you are already, but let me just speak a couple of lines about you. So Saurabh is an educator and a career consultant with a rich experience in engineering and psychology, the two fields that stand at a unique confluence. Saurabh has a knack for presenting the most abstract and technical content in a simplified yet engaging way, which I'm sure you have noticed this style in this series of podcasts. In 2019, he contributed towards Awaji, a rural island near Osaka, Japan, which was a training hub for B2B and B2C training, focusing on global business needs, and most importantly, on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, also known as SDGs. And from there, I guess, the spark of having these conversations that matter to you. So, Saurabh, let me start with the proverbial question that you generally ask your guests, right? So, how are you managing life during this lockdown?
I think before I answer that question, first of all, let me thank both of you for taking out time and giving me this amazing introduction. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I have to say about it because it was amazing and it is so heartwarming. Lockdown, I think the three of us, we started working on different projects right from the beginning. I think the first conversation that I had with both of you was in April when we had some ideas of let's use technology for good and let's start creating new things, and that was just a spark to go for it. The lockdown has been a crazy journey. First 20-25 days I didn't know what to do. I was in the same boat as the rest of the country and the rest of the world actually. I had to move to Delhi for work, but that got cancelled because of COVID-19. It did not make sense to go over there, and I didn't know what to do, to be frank. And then slowly, I started realizing, okay, so this is a time which we can utilize for doing other things rather than the regular things that you're doing. And I'm guilty of being one of those procrastinators who's always like, oh, I don't have time right now. I will do this project later. I will do this project later. But COVID-19 pushed me into taking up a lot of projects which I always had in the back of my mind. Like, for example, the podcast itself, Such Conversations Matter. The first time I had this idea was in 2013. That was the first time I created a Facebook page for, like if somebody's talking, he or she should talk with purpose, have something important to say so that it can make an impact. But that was it. That was in 2013. In 2016, I for the first time, realized, I was in Denmark that time, that I should start making videos because I was consuming a lot of content in Denmark. The internet speed was amazing over there as compared to India. So I was like, why can't I do something like this? And then, cut to 2020 and finally I'm able to do it. Apart from that, so April we started working on our projects. May I started the podcast. I started building a couple of projects for some other companies like Pratham Test Prep, where Aman also is a consultant. And last month was a particularly difficult month for me because My father had, gotten ill because of viral fever. It was not corona, but it was scary as hell. And so most of the month went into that. But he's fine now. He's recovering very well, and we are all glad and grateful. Um, I just want to, and I keep on hearing news now about other friends of mine who are going through a similar situation where one of their relatives is facing some kind of illness, and some of them are corona positive, some of them are not, and the rest of the country is also going through a very very bad phase. So I just wish them luck and wish them all the best. What I'm trying to say is we are all in this together, whether we accept it or not. No matter how much we try to protect ourselves, it's going to be here. India is already, I think it's going to reach number 2 spot in the world now, overtaking Brazil in a couple of days, and we have to live with it.
I think we've already done that. I think it was in now today's newspaper that we've already so we are already there, and it has more or less become like a crazy game. I mean, you don't know, right? Whether you're going out, it is always there in your head, right? Whatever you are doing, whether that is right or wrong, whether you should be doing it or not, you're always questioning yourself, and then again and sort of, I mean, you are the right person, and I believe you did an excellent, chat on this mental health, right? And I am also talking to a lot of friends who are now just saying it, right? That they are feeling, emotionally they're not right up there, and there are lots of news also coming out how emotionally people are being affected. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, all of us are facing this. Hopefully, maybe a new vaccination is the only thing now what can save all of us from this emotional trauma. I guess more than physical, it is now getting emotional also.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think. Will the vaccine come? When will it come? I mean, I don't want to speculate on any of those things. I think all of us have access to news and we can figure it out for ourselves. But if we do not do the things that, COVID-19 has showed us, that these are the things we lack in our society, all right? It doesn't really matter if you're coming from a developed country or a middle income economy like India or a, underdeveloped country. This thing has put everything in perspective. And if we do not take any action right now, whether it is mental health, education, sanitation, healthcare, anything, any of those things, then we are just a bad species, I would say. We are just bad.
So I have one more interesting question for you, and I was wondering, and I was asking this question myself, and I know you are so busy with so many things, right? You are doing your videos, you are doing you're having interviews with some newspaper, you are helping students as well. So you and then suddenly you have that much time. What do you think? How is life going to change post this? I mean, we all understand that this is a tough phase, but I was just wondering that getting back to normal will be a new challenge for all of us, maybe, right? That whatever time we have now and whatever things we are doing, and suddenly to say that, okay, now let's get back to that time. So do you think that will happen, or it's like, in a way, it is something permanent that has happened, right? That the way we think or the way the society thinks, right? Do you think there's an impact on that as well?
So I would like to take an example from the Spanish flu of 1918. All right, because that is the closest pandemic which other people compare COVID-19 with. Yes, it was a great pandemic at that time. The entire world was affected, and very few people know this, but the maximum deaths at that time also happened in India only. It did not happen in Europe. It did not happen in the US so much as it happened in India. All right, and this time also we are looking at the same thing. Like India, as you said, has reached number 2 in the world with the number of cases, and it's just going out of hand. I just hope that people realize those mistakes and don't, start recovering from them. As far as the society is concerned, the society is not going to change. Humans are very resilient. not only in their willpower to survive, but also very, very resilient or stubborn in changing. So I don't think people are going to change at all, like very little, because somehow deep inside in our society, we have kind of, let go of certain responsibilities and duties which all of us had to, share. Like, especially in India, like post independence, there is this entire thought process of among people where they just say, okay, so like, azadi mil gayi hai, we've gotten independence, nobody can say anything to me, so I will spit anywhere I want, or I will drive on the wrong side of the road. All right. I'm not saying that is, a function of independence only, or getting independence. It's definitely a function. It's definitely a thing which exists still in our society. Whether we get educated or not, how we behave outside India and how we behave within India is a very, very different aspect. I think Anurag has lived in the US. He can also agree to those facts. And Aman sir, whenever you've traveled abroad, you can see the same changes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one of the things. I don't think the society is going to change. All this social distancing will probably remain for another year, but we'll get back to it.
Right, and the pragmatic experience also talks about the same thing. I think people who have lived longer than us, who have seen a lot of things more than us, also are of the same view that eventually, when things start getting back to normal, when coronavirus is totally wiped out of this world, when things start moving toward the normal, things will start also moving toward the previous state. And the way people have been doing certain innovations that have helped during coronavirus, some of those innovations will probably be gone because there will be no need for those innovations in those times. But the one thing, there are a lot of positives that have come out of this pandemic, and especially related to environmental causes. Our environment is one of the cleanest it has been in centuries, and you must remember that time in Jalandhar, Punjab, there was a news that a mountain range was visible from the terrace roofs of everyone's homes. That was simply amazing. And similar, things happened in a lot of cities across India, and I'm pretty sure across the world, where the population is high and the pollution is high because of that. But certainly, if talking about the positive areas, certainly one of the positive things that came out of this pandemic, at least something that relates to your life, is this podcast, which brings value to conversations that should be done in the open, and some of the topics that are not meant to be discussed behind closed doors. I totally believe in this concept, but you talked about the journey. You traced it back to 2013 and then came back to 2020. But I have two questions for you. What took you so long? And secondly, how has, now that you have started already and you have, including this episode, you have completed 25 episodes. How does it feel like? How has the journey been like? Being a YouTuber and all that, starting from scratch.
Okay. So that's a very interesting question, especially for me. In 2013, I'm a career consultant, and why and how I became a career consultant has been quite interesting for me, because, well, in our time at least, I come from an army background. My dad was in the army. In my family, both from my mother's side and my father's side, there have been very few engineers. All right. So one of my aunt's two sons, they had done engineering just before me, and they did not get into those the IITs or NITs and all those colleges. So I was probably the first one, and then after me was my brother, who got a decent merit, and we got into NIT. I also had calls from BITS Pilani and other colleges, and that is where the problem is. Nobody in my family knew how to guide me. So even though I had better calls from better ranked colleges and whatever, but I ended up in NIT Jalandhar. Not that I regret it, because then I got to meet Anurag and so many of amazing people over there, and we did some crazy things in college. But that always was somewhere in the back of my mind that, the decision making is problemsome. There is something wrong with the decision making. I completed my engineering. After engineering, obviously, I wanted to earn some money and enjoy my life. So I joined an American company for 2.5 years. After that, I realized this is not what I want to do. And there is this. So, in life, I believe that certain people are able to live with the things which are happening outside their life. All right. They are able to live with in comfort with the fact that, okay, it's okay, that problem exists. I know it exists, but there's nothing I can do about it. So let me just continue with it. So I'm not saying that everyone has to become an activist over here, but some people are very, easily able to do that. I was not able to do that. I was like,
and so that everybody knows,
yeah.
Since Saurabh has already mentioned, we went to the same college.
Yes.
Saurabh was the first one in college to start a newsletter, to take that initiative, because he was very passionate about doing, propagating good things, the good bits. Everyone was tied up with their exams, the studies, the work, the pressure, and then the placement pressure and all of that. Amidst that, Saurabh had this part about disseminating good knowledge.
Yes.
And, you and I shared this trait together, that we were always into something that concerned with knowledge in any form. And Saurabh was a big consumer of books, novels, technical and non-technical both. So he had this passion about doing something about the rest of the students as well. So his was the first newsletter in NIT Jalandhar. I'm not sure what is the status. Once
it's not a good status.
It's not a good status, but I remember that it was at least functional for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Right. But hats off to you. And those are the initiatives that make you more compassionate, more make you empathize with the world matters. This is what makes a person an educator. I believe everyone can be a teacher, but being an educator is something that you have to earn. And these are the things that we take in the right direction. So just a fun fact for everyone.
So Saurabh, and one more thing. So because we are now talking about your engineering story, so from engineering and now we are talking about being an educator, but in between, I guess there was another chapter, right? You went on to do your master's in psychology, I believe.
Yes.
Right? So how did that happen, right? So you always wanted to get to the education part, but how come from engineering? I mean, if like I'm a lawyer, and if I hear this from someone that there is this guy from NIT Jalandhar working with some MNC, and then he left that and he went on to do a master's in this, right? So that's very, very interesting, right? So what exactly happened there?
So as I was saying, I mean, after working in that American company for 2.5 years, I realized this is something I have to do something about this. I mean, I couldn't sleep at nights, literally. And it was, this really, I tell this story to my students also in a lot of webinars that I do. It was, Noida in the middle of July. You can imagine what kind of weather it is. It's 43 degrees and humid. And, one fine day, I just went out of the company, stood in the middle of the road, doing nothing, because I was completely numb as to, why am I doing this? What am I doing? I mean, I'm almost 24, but why am I doing this now? And that's when I decided to leave engineering. And so the next question was obviously what next to do. In fact, my project manager was pretty angry with me. She was like, you guys, this generation, you guys are so, impulsive. You just resign whenever you want to. And she was like, but what are you going to do? She was not at all, she was kind of, what would I say, a little protective of me as well. So I told her, don't worry about it. I found a startup in Gurgaon where I want to work. That startup is into psychometric assessments. They want to do help high school students all across the country. And that is exactly what I want to do as well. So when I joined that startup, joining the startup itself was a very interesting story. I had to fake my way into the startup to get an interview because they were not hiring. So I first of all got their email ID from their website. I sent them an email that I want to do an interview of you. I'm from some college newsletter, the newsletter that we started. So I got into an interview. The interview lasted for 3 hours. 1.5 hours, the founder took my interview, and the next 1.5 hours I was taking his interview. And we found, okay, there's a lot to do together. And that's when I started masters in psychology. In fact, one of my first mentors was a director in that company. Her name is Dr. Ritishri Mishra. She used to work for Career Launcher also, so you might have heard of her, Aman sir. And so under her I was able to learn a lot about psychology. Completed my masters in psychology in 3 years. IGNOU allows you to do 3 years. So as I said, procrastinator. So
and by the way, Saurabh, I still remember that day when we met in Gurgaon, Galleria Market. Right?
Yes.
When you told me about that program that you were doing psychology, I was like, what? Like an engineer doing a psychology course? How the hell can that happen? Like, how the hell? But you did it, right? You completed it.
I mean, trust me, it was as surprising for me as it was for you. I was like, okay, why am I here? And then, I mean, I could understand students, I could talk to them, but, Dr. Idrishi said, you know what? The school ecosystem in India doesn't recognize you if you do not have the right qualifications. And I said, okay, this is the best opportunity then. So that's when I undertook Masters in Psychology. In that, I was able to do an internship at the Dr. Gangaram Hospital, Sir Gangaram Hospital in Delhi, which is one of the biggest in North India, under the supervision of Dr. Aarti Anand, who was the guest in Such Conversations Matter, the first episode and the third episode. And she has been very kind, and she has always supported me and always encouraged me. So through that MA in psychology, I was able to discover so many other things. Anurag, your question was there. Why did it take me so long, right, from 2013 to till now to do it? So I think, there is always this discomfort, or there is always this lack of confidence which comes in you when you keep switching things. So from engineering, where I just spent 2.5 years, and I just started to understand what enterprise coding level was. Just started to understand. I left it. Then I moved into psychometrics, which I had never done professionally before. And in 2013, when I was doing the social media marketing for the company, I created my own page. And at that time, the first idea came that, okay, I need to talk with purpose. I was not at all confident about my psychometrics knowledge as well. So I think that discomfort definitely comes when you're switching things and you've not spent a lot of time in them, right? So you kind of start thinking, okay, whether what I'm going to say, is it going to be valuable enough? So you have that lack of confidence and so many other things. So that was one of the reasons. In 2016 in Denmark, when I decided to start making videos, came back to India. And, that was my primary goal in 2017, to start making videos and start talking about important things. But then again, certain other projects came in line, and I was like, okay, videos we'll make later, and so on and so forth. So it never really happened. In 2020, I mean, this particular mic is not from India. This one I bought in Japan. So last year when I was in Japan, I knew I had some time on my hands, and I said, I have to make videos. And one of the reasons I keep telling myself is I don't have the right gear, the right equipment. So I spent money. I bought this mic. I have a light over here, and etc. But even then, I did not make videos in Japan. It was because of COVID-19 only. So as I said, I'm a bit of a procrastinator when it comes to these things. So but finally I'm here.
It's a mix of waiting for the right time and some bit of procrastination.
I guess so.
Okay. And how does it feel now that you are 25 episodes old? Right?
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
Achievement.
Oh, so that's where I also wanted to answer Aman sir's question initially, which he asked, what do you think is the future of this? I've always believed since 2016 when I left Copenhagen. Copenhagen is a small little town. It has the same population as Jalandhar. All right. It's very comfortable, very, cute little town. And I loved it over there. And I started hating big cities. Like I did not like Chennai a lot. I did not like Mumbai a lot anyway. But then I stopped liking Delhi NCR also. I was like, no, this is not it. I have to live in a smaller city, take out time for myself. It's just healthier. And so that's the other aspect. Like my brother is a complete, corporate guy. He works in Amazon. So is my sister-in-law. So they're both in Bangalore. So it's very difficult for them to actually, make a decision to come to Jalandhar and work. But I can make that decision. So I've been in favor of work from home since 2016. And now I'm finally getting the chance. This way I'm able to be close to my parents, be able to enjoy small town life, with the help of technology, be able to do very, very good things, not at a local scale, but at a global scale now. So when you say, how has the journey been for these 25 episodes? This is the 25th episode, and this is completely your doing. This is not my doing. So it has been amazing. I mean, I cannot tell you. This is so Anurag talked about the newsletter that I started in college. The name of the newsletter was Caps Lock. We created a wonderful team of very passionate people. I felt the same kind of energy when I was creating Caps Lock. The same kind of energy I feel right now when I do my podcast. So after almost 13 years in the world, I've been feeling the same kind of vibes. So that is what I feel now, and that is why I want to continue this in a more productive fashion also. Little bit about the podcast. I have decided to kind of conclude this podcast season 1 with 25 episodes, because I want to reflect on what I've done so far. I want to write about it because I've seen a lot of people, the podcast has been going great. I have been putting in little effort and it has been going great. I've not spent any money on marketing, but last month, the podcast videos or the podcast related posts on Facebook reached more than around 11,000 people. And I have only 1,400 people in my Facebook. So it reached 11,000 people. That's an amazing achievement for me. I mean, because I had hardly thought that maybe 200, 300 people will be interested in this, But right. It has reached a lot of people. So I'm really happy for it. And towards the end of the year, I will be creating a plan for the next season, which I will start in the new year, 2021. I already started creating a list of guests. I'm going to do more research. There are more podcasts that I have started listening to now. One of my favorites is The Seen and the Unseen, which is I think India's most popular podcast when it comes to serious discussions, long form interviews, 1 hour, 2 hour interviews. Is done by this very, very highly acclaimed journalist. Then another one is In the Field by these wonderful 2 ladies in Bangalore. They talk about the social development sector and what is actually happening on ground. So I've started listening to those, learning from them, and yeah, it's going well. It's going really well.
Very nice. Saurabh, before Aman pitches in with the next set of questions, just one last question about this topic. We have talked about the Universal Native Project in some previous videos. When you talked about the small town thing, that you are able to do amazing things at the same global scale that people do in large cities like New York or London or maybe Delhi or Gurgaon, right? Isn't it what the fruit of democratization of information about? How do you feel about that? We talk about democratizing information, making things accessible to everyone. But isn't this how it will feel like once this is done, once this is all achieved? Isn't this, can we see this as one aspect of the journey or the mission?
Absolutely. I mean, so I remember this, I had a conversation in 2016, again in Denmark, with the husband of my mentor from university. And after a couple of glasses of wine, obviously. So I was just talking to him and I said, he was asking me about India because he was also a very curious person. And he talked about, so what exactly is happening in India? India was all over the news that time, the fastest growing major economy in the world. By PPP, we had already reached the second or third spot, I think. I'm getting a little confused here. But any which way, so we were, shooting for the stars and everything. And the Modi wave was there. Everyone was recognizing the power of, this great prime minister or something. And he asked me what is happening. And I told him that, yes, everyone is moving to big cities. All right. So, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, Hyderabad. These are the big 6. Then after that, you have some other 5-6 cities like Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Jaipur, Guwahati. These cities are coming up big. And then you have, Chandigarh and certain other cities. So there are 15-20 cities which are becoming economic hubs for a country which has how many? 6 lakh villages. So it just sounds a little bit weird. to me, because if people from all these villages are going to come to these 15-20 clusters, that means it is going to be very bad living conditions. So, you go to Mumbai and there are areas in Mumbai which are costlier than areas in London or Tokyo. But when you go to London or Tokyo, I mean, the kind of facilities that they offer, Mumbai doesn't have those facilities. So even if you can, afford a flat in one of the posh localities in Mumbai, you will still have the smell of the, garbage, or you still will have all the dirty scenery around you. So I told him that it is not sustainable. And that's exactly what China was also doing, because China realized that, again, I mean, I'm not saying Beijing and Shanghai are not growing. They're still growing like crazy. But they are also investing in developing all these other SEZs, all right, across the country. They are, I mean, everyone knows about China and their ghost towns, but that's what they do, because they have realized that this is a problem with urbanization. That's what I want to tell everyone in India. I know people who are, I know people from Jammu who are not even comfortable living in Chandigarh. And they have gone back to Jammu and Samba district just to be home, and they are able to manage their work because of internet. They are happier over there. And if COVID situation has told us anything, it is this. Major cities, they are always at higher risk as compared to smaller cities or smaller places when, such a pandemic happens. If you are able to manage your work from home, and I think, I mean, it's no point telling you guys, I'm just saying this for everyone else who's listening, because both of you also moved away from NCR and are working in their respective hometowns, right? So that is the future. Because if we do not push in circular economy, the ideas of circular economy, it is not going to happen. Now, coming to the other question of democratization of, information. So, if you look at our country, and if you have some radical progressive ideas, all right, people will probably ask you, where are you from? Right? And the moment you say, I am from Bangalore, Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, they'll be like, okay, we understand. We get it. In Punjab, if you say you're from Chandigarh, they'll be like, okay, we get it. They will not accept your ideas, but they will be accepting the fact that, okay, you're not like us. Why? Because these urban areas, they just have a better, progressive culture. That is where most of the innovation happens. So people are used to these things. If you talk about Jalandhar today, and Anurag, I think you might agree with this, who are the leaders in Jalandhar? How many people do we know? There may be a couple of politicians, couple of industrialists, one odd sportsman, and one odd kalakar or artist.
Too few from Jalandhar.
Too few, but that's about it. And it's a city of 1 million people. I mean, you don't have innovators from here. It has one of the largest universities in North India, which is Lovely Professional University, and it's an international university, or having people from 40 different countries. Then it has a national level institute called NIT Jalandhar, which recently has created so many innovations. But how many do we know? Probably nobody. And that just sounds weird. If you go to Europe, Copenhagen is the center of innovation in Scandinavia. It's as big as Jalandhar. The entire country has 55 lakh people. So this is another thing that I want to do. In fact, I'm involved in I'm getting involved in a couple of projects where we are focusing on Punjab now. We are trying to, raise issues like gender sensitization. We are trying to raise issues like, sexual harassment at workplaces. Because yes, it has reached Delhi, it has reached the corporate houses of Mumbai and Bangalore. It is going to take decades to reach this place if people don't do anything about this. So that's my view. I hope I have answered your question, Anurag. I didn't talk about universal native. I think let's talk about it in the following question.
I'm sure Aman is going to come to that point sooner or later.
Right. So I was coming to your philosophy, right? So when we talk about few things, and then you have this interesting philosophy of fear and convenience. So what is that all about? I mean, what's the thought behind that?
So Fear and convenience is, I mean, I've always been interested in these psychological and sociological, philosophical questions, existential questions, if you might. And I did a couple of episodes with one of our batchmates from college also. His name is Mr. Narendra Joshi. He's currently serving in the Indian Railway Services. So while studying for UPSC and all these civil services, he just read everything about political philosophy. And I had shared the same question with him, that this is what I believe in, fear and convenience. So fear and convenience is, he told me that it is actually just another form of utilitarianism. Now, utilitarianism is a post-Renaissance concept wherein the couple of philosophers, they say that human beings, what they do is there are certain motivators behind whatever they do, and those motivators are pretty materialistic. Materialistic in the sense that you will do something probably because you're scared that your boss is going to say something, your parents might say something, your girlfriend or wife or your partner might say something, your children might say something to you. So there is this fear, all right? Or there is a fear of external factors like pandemic. Oh, if I go out tomorrow to have a holiday, I might just get corona, and then so many other things. That is the fear factor. And
religion also, I guess.
Religion as well. So exactly, religion, all these things, all these societal structures, right? They put in a lot of fear inside us. So when we don't have that fear, for example, we are all sitting in our comfortable chairs in our homes. We know we do not have to fear anything right now. We are safe. We are protected. Why will you do something now? Because there is no fear. So that other motivator is convenience. All right, you will do something because it is convenient for you to do it. Like, for example, we could have clearly, disagreed on the fact, no, let's not do this interview today, let's do it somewhere else. Because you didn't feel like it, or you think it's not important enough. That's convenience, right? So utilitarianism talks about whether whatever human beings do, it's basically to relieve pain. There is some pain in you, all right? And I call it fear. So to relieve some pain or to get pleasure. Okay, so on those lines, I mean, I'm not an expert on utilitarianism, but that is what I feel, that most of us basically do things because of two reasons. Either you're scared of it or the results of it, or it is okay for you, it's convenient enough, so you will do it. For example, we keep on learning when we were younger in our moral science books. We would learn help the needy, help the poor, help the blind cross the road, right? That's what we have read, and it actually comes from a very privileged point of view, but any which way, that is not our problem. That was that curriculum's problem. Hopefully that will change. How many times have we actually helped the poor if we were not feeling up to it? If you were going to office and you were getting late for it, and you could clearly see somebody is in trouble, all right, how many times did you not overanalyze it? Oh, maybe that person is a fraud. Oh, where will the money go? Oh, these people are like this. And we just, went out and helped that person. How many times? We do it very few times. Why do we do it very few times? If you analyze all that situation, you will see that your mood was nice. You were in a good mood that day. You probably had extra money on you. All right. You probably felt that if I do this, some good karma might come my way, or there might be some other reasons. Yes, those reasons are good, ways of explaining to yourself why you did it, but ultimately it's just convenience. So that's what my philosophy is, and that is what I tell my mentees also. And whenever I have to, talk to certain people who I want to work with, I kind of try and analyze it from their situation. Although this philosophy is not foolproof, obviously, because when it comes to family, how are you going to help? Are you going to help your father or mother even if it is not convenient for you? Even if it is, you're scared of the outcome? Yes or no? You will still do it probably, right? So, or well, let's say, when there is a situation like there are two people having the same kind of problem, and you have to help only one of them. You can help only one of them. Who will you choose and why? So when those kind of questions come in, those ethical, moral questions come in your mind, then this philosophy does not hold a lot of water. But I still believe that most of the human beings are utilitarian in their thought process. They do things basically because of two reasons: fear or convenience.
Excellent. So, I mean, to add something to that, I guess when you were saying, right, that the thoughts that will come to your head that maybe he's the wrong person, or maybe, this is wrong or right, and there is another thought, and that again is convenience. That when we think that maybe someone else will do it because I'm in a hurry, right? So we tell ourselves, right, because there's so many people standing there, and maybe that is something which we are not able to do when it's about our family, right? Because then we know that it's only me, right? I have to do it. But then in that case, looking at those 50 people standing there, at least I think that's what happens with most of the people. Ki koi aur hai, right? And there are so many of them, and we just like go ahead and we just want to forget that part. But yeah, excellent. I agree, right? To a lot of what you are saying.
I also noticed. I really like your example where you talked about that charity thing, right? How and when we want to help people, a lot of times depends on our motivation, our mood, right? Especially our mood. When we are feeling very good about ourselves, those are generally the times, at least I have seen, we shy away from it because we think that, okay, I think my life is good, and maybe that person is not actually in need because of 10 different stories I've read in the newspaper about that person being a fraud or something like that. But then when we are feeling lonely or when we are feeling low, that is the time we empathize with people and try to do something. But is this something, this feeling of helping others, is there a formula of sustaining this feeling and somehow applying that into our system so that more and more people can do good to the society? So what do you think about that? So to again repeat myself in formal terms, sorry, how do we do this, especially with our current systems and structures?
So that's a very important question, actually, and there is no straight answer to this. The situation is highly complex, especially in a country like India, and I've been repeating that multiple times. And in fact, with Aman's podcast, also I had talked about how plural and diverse our country is, and just maybe one legal framework is not enough. Maybe we need to innovate. So I'll take examples which a lot of people can understand, so that the conversation doesn't go very abstract here. Let's talk about two. So I've been doing this research. I mean, it's not really research, but it's comparative analysis that I've done. So Scandinavia, it leads the world in so many areas. Finland is the best in education. Denmark is the happiest country. Norway is the richest country. It gives you, so much money the moment your baby is born, and so many other things. Sweden is going completely out of the, coal and oil thing right now. And so Scandinavia leads the world in so many ways. What is Scandinavia? It's a small area, a lot of climate, very extreme climate, very little population as compared to the rest of the world. Very few resources as compared to the rest of the world. All right, but now they are the richest people. So what did they really have when they started off? What they did was they figured out that it's basically us, right? It's us against the world. If we do not help each other, we do not support each other. So this is, I mean, nobody really has talked about this, but in formal terms, that Scandinavians probably will not agree with this theory as well. But this is what my analysis is. In fact, in Danish, there is a saying which, and there's a statue also in Copenhagen related to that. It basically says that the person with the broadest chest, all right, the broadest chest or the broadest shoulders, should carry the others with him, should hold more, burden of the society. Because they basically realize all are humans, but all are different. And not everyone will be able to do the same thing that the other person can do. So if you are able to do something, but you still have energy left, then it is your responsibility to help those who do not have enough energy or enough, power to do so. So that is one part of it. Now, if I take the example, so their system is very socialist in nature, yet they focus a lot on innovation. In fact, there are a couple of documentaries when they compare Denmark with US, and they talk about the fact that how you can become richer in Denmark as compared to the US, because the American dream does not exist anymore, basically. So if you go to America right now, it's very expensive. It's not easy to become a billionaire over there, whatever it is. The other aspect is Japan, which is also a highly civilized society, highly developed, advanced society. And I spent a year over there last year as well. If you go to Japan, I mean, we were literally spoiled by the behavior of the people over there. The people are so nice. They are so thankful and so respectful with you all the time. All right. I'm not saying they're not like regular humans, but it's the etiquette that they have developed over centuries. Respecting every human being, irrespective of where or he or she comes from. Because Japan, again, if you look at the country, barren land, island, isolated, there were resources were always low in that country. That is why it had constant wars. I mean, you can read about its history from the 4th century AD onwards. It had constant wars. And only in the later part of 17th century they started realizing this, when the US there's a history component to it, when the US forcefully opened them, and Meiji Restoration, and the people can read about it. And that's when they realized that we have to create a culture for ourselves, wherein they absorb some newer things from the West, like their clothing, like their way of doing business, their focus on science and technology. But at the same time, they kept a lot of other aspects within themselves: the etiquette, the behavior with each other. For example, they have this culture that in a tea house, so they have these tea houses where they used to negotiate with other people, like two leaders of opposite clans, or two chieftains who are basically enemies. But whenever they had to negotiate, they would be invited to this neutral tea house. And in the tea house, you are supposed to keep your katana or your sword and all the weapons outside. So when you come inside the tea house, you're not here to fight. You're here to negotiate. So those are some of the aspects that they've kept inside them. I'm not saying Japan doesn't have its own problems, or Scandinavia doesn't have its own problems, but they are highly advanced. People look up to those countries and see what is right over there. Now, if you compare these countries with another perspective, the social perspective, first of all, religion does not hold a lot of value over there. It sounds very, very, contradictory, but they are entrenched in traditions. The Danes love their traditions of their pudding, of their liquor, and so on. Japanese love their traditions of liquor and food and everything. But they're not really religious. They do not really believe in God. In fact, in Sweden, I think it's 80% atheists or something. And the Christianity also is a different, it's a Lutheran Christianity, which is mostly prominent in Denmark. So in Japan, it had been Buddhist, it had been Shintoism, Zen philosophy, so many others. So they took all the good things from them. And now people just choose what to do. If they want a Christian wedding, they'll probably, use some of the Christian traditions. They still do a traditional Buddhist Japanese wedding, and so on and so forth. So first of all, religion doesn't exist over there. Everyone has education. They have always focused on good quality education, and they have provided that good quality education in their public school systems. Really high quality, good quality education. I'm not saying their education systems are perfect, but they work. Everyone gets education and good quality education. In fact, in Japan, Japan has the highest number of, per 10,000 people, they have the highest number of students coming from a science or STEM background in the world. Then on top of that, there is just the third thing is tolerance. The third thing is tolerance for everyone. You go to Scandinavia today, they'll be the most helpful people you've met. All right. You go to Japan, they are the most helpful people you've met. It's just tolerance of other human beings. I'm not saying they are accepting human beings. No, because every human being is similar. Our minds are similar. We just look different. But the levels of tolerance in those countries is amazing. So these three things are really important. Now you compare it, like I'm just doing a comparative analysis. Like if you compare it with a country like the US, which is the most powerful country in the world, it still has the biggest economy in the world, right? Religion plays a big part in their politics. And because of that, they are not able to, just make decisions on certain key issues. Okay, one of them being guns. So, which is just stupid. their education system, they spend the highest amount of money in the world on their education system. They still don't, they're still in the early 30s or something in ranking overall. Now coming to India, comparing it with India, all right, let's talk about every part of India.
Saurabh,
yeah.
Before you into India, I think you rightly said that most of us look up to these leading countries such as America and UK and France probably, and we try to emulate their cultures. Not just emulate their cultures, the governments try to emulate their policies. A lot of our constitution has been borrowed by those Western countries, in particular these countries that we have just mentioned. But it's a surprise that we overlook these otherwise more successful countries. If success can be defined in terms of happiness and richness of life, then I'm pretty sure that we should have looked up to these countries rather than those false idols that we follow. But before we move on to India, I think the one thing I have a question about personally, and I would like to hear your thoughts on it, is that do you really think, if hypothetically speaking, if Britishers didn't rule India, right? If we were to continue with the culture that we originally had, and we didn't have these population issues, would India be a different India today? So probably you can answer your question first and then try to apply that context to this. And I would be very interested in knowing the answer, your thought process on that.
So that's actually a very interesting question. And in fact, I think that provides the right starting point also for whatever I was going to say. So in a couple of broadcasts ago, I interviewed Mr. Priyank Sharma, who's a PhD candidate in NIPA. NIPA is a very unique university, National Institute of Education, Planning and Administration. It is the only university, I think, in the world which has been funded by the UN. All right. And it's in India. So it was in 1961, I think, which it was established in, and UN basically wanted India to create a new education system which works for the developing world, right? Didn't really happen that way, but any which way. So he's doing his PhD over there, and he pointed out something very important. He said, so there was this research done recently. I'm bad with these research books and papers and people, but the research basically talks about that if you look at 17th century India or even 18th century India, all right, the literacy rate amongst Indians was very high. I'm talking about the Indian education systems, the original Indian education system, not before Macaulay destroyed it all and everything. The literacy rate in Indians was very high, whether it was through madrasas in Islam or through gurukuls in Hinduism or through, the sacred tribal ways of doing things in indigenous communities, doesn't matter. But the literacy rate was quite high. So Indians were already literate, all right. The only thing which was dividing us was the plurality, because we never considered India as, this big giant place with different climates, different lands, different people who look different, talk different, eat different. As one country, it is just hard to imagine. The definition of a nation does not fit a country like India, or for that matter, a country like Nigeria in Africa, because it is equally diverse, right? So nobody really thought of it from that perspective. Now, when you look at this land in the 17th century from outside, oh my God, so there are small kingdoms everywhere. People are really literate. They have a highly developed culture, highly developed civilization, which has absorbed things from the ancient Brahmanical or Sanatan Dharam way of ways, and they have absorbed things, from Buddhism. They have absorbed things from China, Fahin, and all these people. They have absorbed things from Islam. Like if we talk about Islam a lot, but not everyone talks about it, comprehensively. Islam has been very, very peaceful when it comes to southern India, or you talk about Southeast Asia. Islam has migrated to these places very peacefully as compared to, let's say, Central Asia or Northern India or even Eastern India, right? So there is this huge land which is generally peaceful, has a lot of riches. These guys don't attack anybody else because they have everything over here. Fertile land, forests, resources, coastline, great weather. You don't even need to wear clothes. They don't need to attack anybody else. And the only thing that they could think of was, if we have to capture this land, we have to do certain things which are inhuman. Probably divide and conquer, first of all. Secondly, subdue them, completely subdue them. How will you make a population which is 10 times your population your slave, right? If you keep on dividing them, keep on creating issues between them. So that's what they did. Because they had, better quality machine power, they were able to do that also. So if the Britishers had not come in here, probably some other European nation might have come here. I mean, not a lot of people know. I mean, obviously, we know that the Dutch Indies, Dutch were one of the first people to come here. Portuguese were the first. The Dutch came in. The French came in. The Danish had come in and set up some colonies in Tamil Nadu. The Danes from Scandinavia, like probably the farthest country to come here, because everyone wanted to have a base over here. But the British were ultimately successful. So if the British were not able to do it, probably we would have been doing this in French right now. When we talk about India, and I said in my podcast with Aman sir also that we probably need a more innovative, legal framework. Just in the morning, Aman sir, I had shared a TED talk also with you, wherein this law firm in Delhi, what they're doing is they're making infographics out of contracts. So there's a 250-page contract, but they're reducing it to, just 20 pages by using infographics. And that has increased the sales of a lot of companies. So that is the kind of innovation we need. Now, India needs to learn, yes, from Scandinavia, from Japan, from the US, no doubt about it. In fact, the current national education policy is basically based, the higher education policy, in fact, is primarily based on the US higher education policy. All right, it basically takes it from there. Why? Because the US follows both the British higher education policy and the German higher education policy. So it's a good combination of both. And those are considered very, very good. So we are just taking things from there. India also needs to learn at the same time from Costa Rica, which is probably the most progressive country in the world right now as far as climate, decisions are concerned. India also needs to learn from Rwanda, which in 1994 had the worst genocide in human history, and now is the fastest growing, most progressive country in Africa, beating South Africa in a lot of ways. India also needs to learn from Bhutan, which is actually the happiest country in the world. And Sikkim has learned from Bhutan. So Sikkim is the most progressive state in the country today as far as organic cultivation and climate change is concerned. India also needs to learn from Kerala itself the good things about socialism. Yes, the government calls itself communist, the party is called communist. It's not really communist, it's a very democratic socialist government. Because what Kerala has been able to do, no other state has been able to do as well. India also needs to learn from Mizoram, where the literacy rate is more than 95%, and it is not because of the government education systems. It is because the missionaries who set up convent schools over there to teach everyone. And the same story with Kerala and Goa as well. That is why they have high literacy rates. So in Punjab, if I have to implement a model, I will probably not create new things. I will just empower current systems. So for different reasons, we need to look at different places and different people and different states. If we keep looking at the same things and keep thinking, oh, we tried to do that, it didn't happen. Because we were very innovative in the 50s. In the 1950s, we were probably one of the most innovative countries in the world when it comes to socialism or when it comes to nation building, in fact. We created the non-aligned movement, took Yugoslavia, Egypt, and some other countries with us. We were the first ones to create the longest constitution in the world because we said we need more, we need more, we need more. We were the first country probably which, had a mixed economy. I mean, Pakistan also has a mixed economy, but we were probably the first ones to actually talk about having such a concept at such a large scale.
Exactly. So basically, if I understood correctly, we in India itself, we have a lot of states that are progressive, that have been progressive since a very long time, and certain states that are now on track of being progressive, much more than the states that have traditionally been one of the richest states. and especially Punjab, which was the royal state, the state to talk about, the state to live in. But where is Punjab now today? Does it even rank anywhere in India in terms of justice, in terms of lawmaking, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of sex ratio? I don't think Punjab has. I think Punjab has lost a lot of those things.
I can talk about Punjab itself for 20 minutes if you want. I mean,
I know. And I think that could be a good separate conversation. But I think there are a lot of goods that come out of India itself, and we have our role models inside India to apply and apply across these states that are having trouble, especially the North Indian states, which have been the at some point like Bihar, Awadh, which was the confluence of all these big literary names in history, and today they are like they're nowhere, right? So I think that's a great example. So there was a story about, I think it was Meghalaya or Nagaland, one of those states, where people were standing in a queue. It was a Corona time story.
Yes.
For food or something, right? And the social distancing that they were following was phenomenal. The line was more than a kilometer long, but they were not in any hurry because they knew that our turn would come. And I have read a lot of these stories in northeastern regions where people, when they're driving even, right, even if there are kilometer-long jams, people still do not stray away from their own lanes, even if the next lane is totally empty, right? I have seen a lot of such pictures. So we have much to learn from these states.
You're absolutely right. I mean, and again, I mean, if you look at that, and those examples come from Meghalaya, Mizoram, Manipur, and so many other parts, small cities spread all across the northeastern region. You start looking at the underlying factors over there. The northeastern states generally have higher education, literacy rate than the rest of the country. They generally have a higher literacy rate. All right, so they have education. All right. Secondly, religion. Those states are so diverse. They have so many indigenous communities that you cannot pinpoint a single religion for them. All right, probably, Manipur you can say is primarily Hindu because, there used to be a Hindu king over there. Or Tripura also you have something. But other parts, you will see that they have so many different indigenous cultures. It's very difficult to pinpoint one religion's, aspect. So based on religion, there is, a lot of things we can observe from there and learn from it. So there is greater tolerance coming from there because, everyone around you is different. So tolerance also comes in, and those are the three things that I talked about, right? Religion, you have to take it in a very moral and ethical sense, but not beyond that, not a fundamentalist approach. Secondly is education, high literacy rate over there, and thirdly is tolerance because everyone around you is different, so you have to live with them. Right. That just makes sense.
I still remember I was once, like in Sikkim for a month or so, and one thing which influenced me, or was that they had, as you were saying, Saurabh, that they were more concerned about their tradition. They were not that concerned about their religion. I mean, they have a tradition, right? Be it having beer in the evening. They call it something else, right? Some rice beers, but they have like unique traditions, and religion is inside the house, and outside of it, right? It was more about that Sikkimese tradition, that this is our tradition. I think that also helps you to have more tolerance because at some point you are connected with each other as well, right? And I think that's what has happened in the northern side. The northern side, right? We don't have those traditions anymore because we have now changed everything as far as religion is concerned, right? We have changed everything to suit our religion. I mean, if we talk to our grandparents, right, they will tell us that it was the same here as well, that we were more about our traditions, that a Hindu wedding or a Muslim wedding would primarily be the same except for the last bit. But then over the period of time everything has changed, and now we are more concerned about the do's and don'ts, and that sphere element you were talking about. Yes, so that's a very great point here. Tradition and the tolerance part of it.
Right, that's so correct, Aman. I can remember of one such story when I was the first time I went to Goa. Goa, you know, being the India's one of the most frequented tourist destinations and all that. The first weird thing that I noticed there was, and that was not weird in that state, was that 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. was reserved for an afternoon siesta. No shop ever could be open that time. At the same time, it felt like, okay, people care about their sleeping habits, but at the same time, you felt frustrated. Okay, I need to shop. I'm here just for one day. I need to go somewhere, and after 5:36, everything gets closed anyway, right? At least the tourist destinations. So, but I later came to realize, whatever shop I went to in the evening, almost all the people had this little television on which they were watching football matches, right? They were so passionate about football, every one of them. More passionate about how, in general, we Indians feel about cricket. Mm-hmm. They could not just miss any shot, any minute of the game. Most of the people were like, okay, so on one hand, they were doing something with their hands, and they were talking to the, visitors, and it's just so passionate. So it's just a culture, right? As Aman rightly pointed out, the culture of place matters a lot, and we have a lot to learn from that. And the Goan culture, I think, teaches us to have good sleeping habits, because if you don't, then you cannot live your life to the full potential. So those people know to drink the right amount and to sleep well and to be passionate about football, and by probably doing these things, be happy in life, right? So that is the thing that I learned from this one visit to Goa, and that, I think, changed my perspective.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I've lived there. I've lived in Goa for 2.5 years. Yeah, almost 2.5 years, and it was a big change for us as well. But it also makes you, understand. Okay, their way is different. People need to realize this, that other people's way of doing things might be different. All right. If you eat dessert before having dinner, they might be wanting to have dinner first before having dessert. It's okay. At the end result is same. The end result is nutrition, right? Probably this was a bad example, but this is what it is. And this tolerance you can increase. You can have. You can see more actually. So there is a friend of mine. Chinese immigrant parents to Canada. He's a Canadian citizen now, and I met him in Japan last year. And so he's also a lot into political philosophy and everything. And we started discussing, and I was like, I have seen this. We were discussing my recent trip to South Korea and Taiwan. After I came back, and everyone was just comparing Japan with South Korea. Now, South Korea is also a developed country, all right. Very high per capita income, very high, those development indexes. It's almost at par with Japan in almost all the things. The only thing is it has a smaller economy than Japan, but everything else is, similar. But the people of Japan, as I said, they will make you spoiled, all right. They will spoil you with their good etiquette and respect and everything. But when you go back to South Korea, suddenly you're in a place where you will start feeling that, oh, people are so rude. Whereas they're not being rude, they're just being normal, okay? They're just being normal because that's how they are. In fact, South Koreans generally are considered a little hot-blooded. They are just different, although those countries are so close to each other. In fact, they are like, brothers, because China, Japan, and Korea, they are these three brothers who, don't want to live with each other, but also cannot live without each other. All right. So they have a very similar story to what we have with Pakistan. And that's when I started a discussion over there that South Korea took a longer amount of time to get to the kind of developed level according to the human development indexes as compared to Japan. Japan became developed earlier than South Korea. The thing that I suggested was, if you look at countries which became developed earlier, they generally have a higher tolerance level as compared to countries which became developed later or are still developing, and so on and so forth. All right. Canada, again, a very developed country, has much higher tolerance levels than the neighbor, most powerful country in the world, the US. All right. And that was a very interesting thing that we, started discussing. And I'm not sure if there is any, current research available on this, where there is a correlation between the, human development index or the economy or the per capita income with tolerance levels. So if that kind of a research is done sociologically, that will be really interesting to see, because then you automatically understand that if you want to create peace in the world, and by the way, we are living in the most peaceful time in the world ever in the human history. And one of the reasons you can see that a lot of countries are having a lot of money right now. So probably having decent prosperity is the underlying factor for having peace. You stop caring about, your enemies if you have a good life, a good quality life. The definition of good quality life does not come from the US. For them, the good quality life might be something else. For us, the good quality life has to mean something else. So if somebody asks me, are you happy? Are you having a good quality of life right now? I'm having probably a very high quality of life right now, because I'm with my family. I'm having all the material comforts that I need, not the that I want. I don't have fur on the dashboard of my car, because probably that is something I don't need. But I have all the materialistic comforts. I'm able to do good quality work, the kind of quality work that I want to do, the freedom of expression, and good food and everything else. So these are the aspects of having a good quality life. And if we are able to provide just this much to the entire population of the world, which is possible because we have money to provide this 10 times over. Probably I'm exaggerating a bit, but yes, we have a lot of money already. And people need to realize that this is all that we need. We are happy with this. And that's what is needed. So I went a little off track, but I think I hope that made a point.
Yeah. So, and I think that takes us to the next part of our conversation, right? So we talked about Japan, we talked about South Korea, we talked about the states in India, and we talked about the happiness part and the quality of life, and that brings us to universal native, right? So, yeah, because again, South Korea, Japan, Canada, and then we talk about India. So what is universal native, right? What are we trying to do there, and what are your thoughts on that, right? How did this idea came to you? And again, we, myself and Anurag, right, we are also a part of this, and like very, very excited. But how did it occur to you that something could be done on these lines?
Right. So, in fact, I would like to start this by something which Mr. Ravinder Nath Sachdev said on one of the episodes. He's an international level expert, and I had invited him to understand, with the current geopolitical situation, China, India, and so many other things, where are we headed? And he basically said that you need to have his particular way of expressing this is live and let live. That the entire world needs to have this foreign policy of live and let live. All right, do not interfere in other people's matters. Let them live. You can also live. Do not start things for no reason. And I think it's a great way of saying that we don't really need we need a foreign policy like that. We also need a domestic policy like that. That there are different people in the country. They have the same kind of right that you do. You are not special. They are not special. Why create trouble? Right? Anyways, taking a cue from there, how do we live and let live? So, how do we create that sense of equality among people? How does somebody know that that person has the same rights as somebody else? One of the things is lack of knowledge. So, our fourth comrade, Ashish Rana, in his, the second episode I did with him, and he talked about the fact that People just don't know about what the government has to offer to them. So, we have domestic help maid. She is originally from Gorakhpur and she does not have a ration card. There are 10 members of her family which live in the same two-room setup. And to get a ration card, it's been more than a month now, and we are helping her out. We are filling up the forms because most of them forms are in Gurmukhi script, so she can't read it. She can't read anyhow. So, and her Aadhaar card is primarily in English, which is a complete disconnect. I mean, so the language itself is a disconnect, which is a separate topic altogether. Any which way, we are helping her out. She doesn't even know that having a ration card would have helped her a lot. After Corona, once her income started decreasing, she realized that something is going wrong. And, there were rumors that the government is giving free grains and free ration and everything. Till today, it's been 6 months, almost 6 months since the lockdown started, 20 odd days left. She hasn't received free grains. I don't know where the free grains are going if they're not going to people like her. So in order to get free grains and free ration now, she has to create a new ration card, which is the government has started, the national ration card scheme, which will be valid in all the states. And just to get her ration card made, it has taken more than 2 months. It is still not ready. People don't know what is being offered. And one of the ways how we can offer it is through technology. And that is the entire purpose of Universal Native. Democratization of information so that the access to information becomes easy for everyone involved. And so that is that this idea came to me in 2017. At the same time as when I started realizing that utilitarianism or fear and convenience is how people work. And based out of that, I realized that Universal Native is an idea which can actually create a huge amount of impact. With Anurag, you also, when we did our podcast, we discussed about how we can use technology for good. And you said already people are doing a lot with technology for good. Right? Technology is, in a way, a great equalizer. I'm not saying it does not create divide. In fact, the education systems right now are getting a new kind of divide only between haves and have-nots. People who have technology and people who don't have technology. So people who have technology have access to information and education. People who don't, they don't have access to education anymore. But at the same time, technology also enables you. And in the future, in the next couple of years, we will see technology increasing like crazy. So why not use technology to create a channel where people can access information? So now the next thing comes, what kind of information? Every kind of information. Now, all three of us, we are privileged Indian males, right? We are from the same age group. So we have had very high quality of education, subsidized education. We have access to good housing, good transportation systems, good everything. We are bilingual, maybe multilingual. How many people in India can say the same thing? Very few. So how can we bring them to our level? We are not super rich people. No, we are just middle class people. But how can we bring those people to our level? So you give them all access to their legal rights. If you are living in this state, in this district, in this village, what are your legal rights? How can you take a license? How can you apply for a ration card? How can you apply for a passport? Which all government subsidies are available for you? You will be surprised to know that the government has announced a lot of schemes for students. Lot of schemes. I'm talking about before Corona. There is this scheme called the Ladli scheme, which was, I think, launched by Prime Minister Modi only. I mean, it was not really launched by him. It was just renamed. It was launched quite a long time ago. So according to the Ladli scheme is basically, empowering the girl child. So the girl student will get a lot of subsidies, extra books, textbooks, and so many other things. Similar to Ladli scheme, there are tens of other schemes. And when the government comes to audit how many schemes have been implemented, how many schemes are being done, they will just give them the Ladli scheme data. You know why? Because the people, for them, it is easier to implement. The administrators, the teachers, it is easier for them to implement the Ladli scheme. They will not implement any other scheme. Why don't they implement other kind of schemes? A, it's too bureaucratic, it's too cumbersome, it's difficult to understand, it's difficult to get the parents on board for the scheme. So the people just don't have access to that information. And this is one example of many. So, to all the government schemes, all the government welfare schemes, all right? Secondly, government scholarships, having access to information such as what is mental health, what is being, if you're doing something, well, people don't really realize when they are actually sexually harassing somebody else. They don't even know if the behavior is okay or not. They're still stuck in the, old ways of doing things, which is primarily from a patriarchal society point of view. That education is not available. So if you don't even know what you're doing is wrong, you will never correct it also, right? So information related to that, information related to the fact that the United Nations has done this thing over here, so you can go and register yourself over there. Now I'm talking about all these development schemes, mostly social schemes, because those are the people we need to get on board. Us, we already have figured it out. We know we live in a country where the healthcare system is basically bad. We know we live in a country where the education system is not efficient. We know we live in a country where the legal system is not good. But we have kind of understood how to manage it. But those people, they have not understood it yet. And they will not understand it also because they do not have access to information. And the same story goes for all middle income economies of the world, all underdeveloped economies of the world. Because people just don't have these things, access to information. Now, changing an entire education system will take decades. I mean, for us only, it took like more than, 34 years to come up with a new education policy. And when will it be implemented? According to one of the main bureaucrats, the secretary of the education department, Ministry of Education, Ms. Anita Karwal, she very subtly said in one of the webinars, oh, it will probably take a decade. All right. So if it is going to take a decade to implement the policy, who will be the beneficiaries of the policy? Nobody knows. But what we can do for education is, we can provide information directly to them right now. You don't need to have a degree to understand what are your basic rights. You don't need to, clear your 10th board exams to be able to receive the basic schemes or the basic benefits which the government is responsible to give to you, is obligated to give to you.
Yeah. So, Saurabh, in this case, how can technology help people, such as your domestic health, in order to understand what the government has to offer?
Exactly. So that's very interesting. So when I was going through that ration card application, and it was in Gurmukhi, my Gurmukhi is very, very bad. I mean, I understand it by joining. There are still some letters I don't understand completely. So I have to take my help from my mother and father, who are very good in Punjabi. I was thinking, so even if it is in Gurmukhi, right? What if in her basic phone, I bought her a phone for 600 rupees. In her basic phone, what if there was an application which could read it out to her? All right. And now we have a lot of voiceover technologies. I mean, I don't know what exactly we call it, voiceover or something, but it's basically using a lot of AI algorithms where it will read out text and it can also listen to text and write it down very accurately. In fact, I tried it out. I was interacting with a friend of mine in Japan. Her English was not very great. My Japanese is zero. So I tried. Wait. Before you speak anything, let me open that website. So there was a free website from one of the research, labs in one of the engineering colleges in the US. They had created this free software. So I said, press record over there. She said something in Japanese. It was recorded, and then it was being translated into English. And that broken translation, I could understand. That was one way of doing it. The other way was, how about, she already has her bioprints, bioscans in the UIDI system, right, in the Aadhaar system. Why do we need to apply for another ration card? Like, why can't you just use the same Aadhaar number? And why I'm saying this is useful is because in Estonia they actually do it. So in Estonia they have a unique ID, like how we have Aadhaar ID now, or how in the US they have a social security number. Like in the US you have to protect your social security number, right? It's a unique number. Don't share it with anyone. In India also we get messages from the government. Don't share your Aadhaar card with everyone. In Estonia they share that number with everyone. They say, yeah, this is my number. It's basically like your name. It's your digital name. But the system is so secure that you don't have to do anything. Like nobody can hack it. It has not been hacked. I think it's been 2 decades almost since they implemented the system. It has not been hacked yet.
In fact, Saurabh, haven't they very recently implemented an extension of that social security number sort of a thing, and provided an electronic citizenship to their
Yes.
country, wherein you can, sitting in India or Pakistan or whatever country, you can open a company over there
Yes.
with all the legal system in place,
Yeah.
just by getting one social number. That's it.
Exactly. I mean, and it's not really a recent thing. Also, they started doing this in I think 5 years ago. They were the first country to do this, and similar. And then like simultaneously, the other countries, neighboring countries, Latvia and Lithuania, they started. Some other countries in Europe started. The US In the US, you can register a company from India itself. In the state of Delaware, you can register a company for less than $50 or $250, one of the two. One of my friends actually did it. So you don't even need to go to the US to set your company. You can just send, you can put an online application, give all the details. They will give you a social security number for your company. They will send you physical documents. They will post it from the US. You will receive it in India. And that's how you set up a company in US today. So those things are happening. But is it really happening in India? Is it very difficult to make it in India? That's another very interesting question. So one of our batchmates, Anurag, one of our batchmates from our batch in NIT Jalandhar, he's currently the assistant director of the Department of Industries and Commerce in the government of Punjab. All right, so he's a Punjab Civil Services person. So assistant director in the Department of Industries and Commerce. And we were discussing about certain things, and he told me that there are certain pieces of land in Punjab which were supposed to be industrial lands, all right? And he was given the charge to convert those industrial pieces of land and bring them back into the inventory so that the Punjab government can use it, or it can sell it to other people, or it can lease it out to other industries, all right? And I said, so why isn't the Punjab government doing it? It's a good idea because you have to do it, right? He said the documents related to those lands are missing. So, and nobody really bothers about it. The other aspect is nobody really bothers. Just imagine the documents related to a piece of property which the value of which is worth in crores. We are living in a bankrupt state, but nobody's bothered about it. It can actually generate revenue. A recent report by McKinsey actually told the government of India that you can start selling a lot of your PSUs and you will start getting a lot of cash which you need right now. Because as I think everyone understands that unlike the US or European countries, we cannot print more money to solve our corona crisis, right? Nobody's bothered. Why? Because it is too bureaucratic. Nobody wants to take the responsibility. So my question is, if the people who are supposed to take responsibility are not going to take responsibility, then who else takes the responsibility? It is people like us. I do not trust the legal system also now. I mean, with the recent Prashant Bhushan case. So, yes, sure, there is a particular government we have right now which has a certain ideology. They're doing things according to their own way. It is okay. These things happen in every democratic country. But what is the guarantee that the next government which will come in power will reverse all the things that they have done? Who's going to take that responsibility? So that responsibility is not being taken by our existing systems, and that is why we need to create newer systems. So Anurag, in the beginning you had asked me about newer systems, or how do we circumvent this, how do we create equality. I'll take a case study from Japan again. All right, so Japan is a country which does not evolve very quickly. It's very hard to digest that information because everyone knows Japan as this highly advanced, technologically advanced, crazy country, right? Rich country. It is all of those things, but it doesn't evolve. It doesn't evolve quickly. And you can see bureaucracy killing a lot of things in Japan. If I talk about the corporate world, just recently in the beginning of this year, the biggest corporate criminal in the world, all right, bigger than Vijay Mallya actually, is Mr. Carlos Ghosn, all right. Mr. Carlos Ghosn was the CEO. He has a distinct, privilege of being the CEO of two global automotive companies at the same time. Nobody else has done that in the world. He was the CEO of Renault, which is a French company, and Nissan, which is a Japanese company. And he basically, mismanaged accounts for his personal gains. I think he took around $120 million or something out of the company fund. So he was put into jail by Japan. They found it out. The auditors found it out, so they put him in jail. Then he escaped.
Was it like a prison break?
Oh, it was very interesting. There's a recent infographic video I will share with you later. What he did was he got out on bail after a couple of years, I think, or something. Then he threw a party because he was out on bail. Okay. In the party, he invited a lot of people. Obviously, there were musicians, there were caterers, and everything. And after the party was over, what he did was, like, the police surrounded everything. They were checking everyone and all those things. After the party was over, so all the vendors, the musicians, and the caterers, they were going back home. And Mr. Ghosn, he had already planned his way out. What he did was, there is this big instrument called the cello. So cello has a big box also. All right. So he hid inside the box, and then that van was taken to Osaka airport, the airport where I came from to India as well. And then he was loaded onto a private jet, and he went to Lebanon. First, he went to, I think, Switzerland or one of the European countries. From there, he went to Lebanon. And Lebanon and Japan don't really have an extradition treaty or something. And he's originally from Lebanon. He's Lebanese, but he grew up in Brazil. And you know why this happened? I mean, one of the reasons why a lot of people say in Japan about this is that it was because a lot of bureaucrats basically just could not face the truth that this has happened. So it was shame on them. They felt shameful of sharing this information with others because they thought that it was my responsibility. So when we talk about India, where bureaucrats do not take responsibility, the Japanese are on the other end. They take too much responsibility and create issues over there. All right. Not only that, like the other example that I want to take is, yeah, please.
So neither the less of it is good, nor the more of it is good. Right?
Absolutely. Extremes kill you, right? Extreme of too much is bad. Too much of anything is bad, right? That is the saying. The other example, COVID-19 situation. Taiwan, South Korea, Vietnam, these countries are taken as model nations today, how they have managed the situation. And Japan is right next door. Japan should have been there, right? Japan is considered in a situation right now which is really bad. A lot of my friends who from Singapore and Australia are not going back to Japan because they don't trust how they've handled the situation in Japan. A lot of people living in Japan, they are uncertain of how many cases they actually have and what they are doing to prevent these things. When the lockdown started, social distancing was mandated. Japan was still open. Japan said, no, we are not having any lockdown. Nothing like it. Because the government could not face up to the fact that we are not able to manage this. They were feeling shameful. And all these corporate leaders, they were like Mitsubishi and all Sony and all these people. They were like, what are you doing? We have to run the economy. They just buckled down. My friends who are working in Japan, they said that they are still sitting in the same office with no social distancing. And why? Like, even though they can work from home, the government doesn't trust them, or the people, the bosses don't trust them. They say, basically, you will watch YouTube at home. So you have to come to office. That is the kind of accountability, like the fear of, accountability from seniors that they have. Now, the question was, right, like, okay, I think I forgot the question.
The question was more about how we can change the systems
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah,
way
yeah.
the other economies have.
Exactly. So now, when I've lived in Japan and I've discovered these things about Japan, it seems really bad. So when we had conversations about Japan with other people who had lived in Japan for quite a long time, they said Japan only changes when there is an external impact. In the 1800s, they didn't want to open up. All right, they had gone into this hibernation mode. In fact, they have a particular term for it. I'm forgetting that. The US forced them to open up. Open your ports. We want to trade with you. They forced them open. So Meiji Restoration started. Not Meiji Restoration, but the Westernization started from there. All right. Then again, like whenever there is now this Carlos Ghosn incident has happened, because of this incident, they will start changing their ways of policing corporate leaders, especially international corporate leaders. Similarly, the Japan Olympics is cancelled. They want to do it again. The world governments have basically said that if you can guarantee the safety of the athletes from the disease, we will agree that Japan should do it. You know what Japan is doing? Rather than actually guaranteeing the thing, they are commissioning universities across the world, including Johns Hopkins University, which is like the leader in medical science in the world. They are commissioning a study with Johns Hopkins University to come and assess the situation in Japan so that they can give them a credibility stamp that no, Japan is good. Till the time there's an external threat, they don't change. COVID-19 is an external threat and they are now going to change because it will start changing things. That is what human beings are. So Japan is an extreme example over there. But in India also, we need external intervention. Otherwise, we will not change. And that external intervention will not come from outside. People from outside have tried, like for generations, they have tried to help, people in India to grow. There are charities, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and so many other things. But there needs to be a systemic change, and the systemic change has to be at scale. A few NGOs at ground level will impact that small community. So I was just talking to another friend of mine, and Ronnie Screwwala is a very big name in India. He has his own charity. It's called Swadesh. I think it's called Swadesh. In Maharashtra, you go anywhere, whatever charity is there, Swadesh name will be there. What does Swadesh do? They give money to other charities. What they do is they give it to some regional level NGO that you have to do these things, but you will only use Swadesh name. Like the publicity will be ours, we'll give you the money. Then that regional NGO contacts some other grassroots level NGO, gives them money, and tells them you cannot use your name. You can only use Swadesh name. All right. So those things are also not systemic. Systemic changes can only happen through technology. Another way of doing systemic change is if we stick to one city, let's say Jalandhar or Chandigarh, we are not creating an impact for the entire country. And people in Jalandhar and Chandigarh only will not agree with us. But you understand this. There are hundreds and thousands of other Indians spread across India and across the world who will agree with what we are talking about right now. And they would like to do something. Technology provides us that chance to do it right now. That is what Universal Native is all about.
So I think that's a great way to put it. And unlike a lot of people who have moved away from India into these better lands like Americas and Europe, people who have lost faith in the Indian system, I still believe that there is a glimmer of hope that we can and we should get together and do something. And technology, as you rightly said, and as Aman was also talking about, is that opportunity, which if we don't take today, then it's never going to be an opportunity again that we see. So I think it's more urgent, even if you think about the situation like coronavirus, how it affected policy making in India. Of course, there's much debate on the measures that were taken by the government, this Modi government. But I don't think entirely every decision was wrong, and some of the steps were taken in the right direction. At least the communication was there. Our Prime Minister was, not occasionally on TV, but frequently on TV, talking to people, talking about the steps that they are planning to do Whether or not they have actually implemented them is another question. But at least coronavirus has had this impact, and as you said, this has been an external impact. But how many, how much can we wait for more such devastations to happen to a country like India, which is still tottling on its feet? So technology is, I think, that factor, and I believe that there are a lot of people like us, like the three of us, spread out all across the world, who want to contribute something, do something, even by sitting in those distant lands, even if they cannot be here all the time, they still have that feeling, that obligation toward their mother nation. And I think technology is that unifier or that enabler that will allow them also to do something. So, as you rightly put, thanks for putting that right. So, Aman, any other question for our famed podcasters?
Saurabh, I got two things which were coming to my mind, and I wanted your thoughts on that. Firstly, do you think that Anurag was also talking about this word, and whenever I hear these two words, right? One he was talking about was empathy, and the other one is compassion, right? So one thing with this universal event, we have talked about this before also, that how people are changing their mindset now. Maybe earlier, so I would really want that they will not go back to the, as we were discussing, maybe a system will go back, but maybe the empathy part or the compassion part would stay. And right now people are more like at least talking about environment, about mental health. So one part is that can we change that? Will it have an impact on that? And do you think that the current situation is the right time, right, for people to get more involved, because they just realize that they don't need to buy 15 shirts in a week or in a month. I mean, right? So they are realizing it now. And I know a lot of people personally who have changed, a lot in these last 5 months, that they are like, we were doing it all wrong. So that is the first. I want your views on this. I think I'll continue with the second question later. But first, your views on this.
Definitely. I mean, so there are so many, different aspects to that question that you asked, Aman. First is, people have realized that consumerism does not come out of need. It comes out of marketing. All right. So certain companies, like the current capitalistic structure that we have, is not sustainable. No matter what you call it, no matter how you look at it, it's not sustainable. All right. Ultimately, it comes down to the fact that there is one executive who wants to get a promotion or a bonus, and he makes certain decisions. For him, it's a very short-term, low-impact decision, but that decision actually amplifies. We have this scientific term also, like when mercury gets into the system, or arsenic, or any of the toxins get into the system, and it completely amplifies at a food pyramid level. So the same thing happens with the capitalistic decisions also. Nobody cares about, what is going to happen to small islands in the Pacific, if we keep on, making these gas guzzling big vehicles. Because it is not affecting them directly. For the first time, probably, we in the human history are aware enough or have enough access to accurate information. So this is also a very big thing. Enough access to accurate information to make a call for ourselves, and not wait for, not agree to what celebrities come on the TV and tell us, no, eat this Kellogg's, or, buy this shirt, or get into this car, or just take a vacation. All right. For the first time, we have enough accurate information to judge for ourselves what is right and what is wrong, what is safe and what is not safe. Yes, there are, geopolitical situations arising because of that, but they are all short term. Most of the people have, like, at least the people who can access information and understand it, they have understood what is going wrong. The other aspect of it is, when you said, will people be willing to get involved in the social sector? I'm part of these circles, WhatsApp groups, Telegram messenger groups, and Facebook groups, which are involved in the development sector, the policy making, conversations and all these things. In fact, recently I got accepted to this amazing fellowship, but I could not join it. It's called the Global Policy, Diplomacy and Sustainability Fellowship. Sustainability is just becoming a keyword everywhere. There are so many new opportunities right now for people to get into the development sector, to make change at grassroots, policy level, corporate sustainability level, and so many other aspects. And people want to get involved. In fact, I recently started a course from IGNOU, which is called the Postgraduate Diploma in Sustainability Sciences. And, so IGNOU also is taking its time to develop this online learning mechanism that they have now. They're using Google primarily, and the Google tools and all the other apps that they have to give us all that. It has around 90 plus learners from all across the country. And we have this huge WhatsApp group. And I had never really imagined that there will be so many people from so many different backgrounds doing this obscure course from IGNOU. So everyone has his or her own reasons for doing courses from IGNOU. For me, it's just the convenience and flexibility. For a lot of people, it's also economic viability. The course is just 5,500 rupees for a year-long course, right? So whether you have money or you don't have money, whether you have, you have a big career or you don't have a big career right now, whether you're living in a big city or a small city, a lot of people are interested in sustainability right now. The patterns are clearly out there. So people are ready to do this. They just want the right avenue to do it. And as it happens, and I think Anurag will agree with that, as it happens with the tech world, there are always these trends. Right now in India, we have the edtech boom. All right, everyone is getting into it, and you will see 6 months down the line, almost everyone comes out of it also. All right. So sustainability is also going through that same, trend right now, sustainability technology, because nobody has really figured it out. And I'm not saying that we have figured it out, but I think we have a model which is sustainable, which is doable also.
Okay.
So what was your second question, Aman?
Second one, I was pretty intrigued by our conversation here, and I was thinking that how information can also lead to kind of awareness which could further lead to almost a revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about the Japanese system, and I was thinking about our local system, right, wherein few people died in Punjab because of that liquor. And there were reports, right, that Punjab has one of the worst, excise policies in India. So if we can tax alcohol rightly, right, the government cannot and will not have any right to say that we don't have money to pay our teachers. So this was, I was reading it somewhere, but people are not aware of this.
Yes.
That Punjab is not, like the taxes we are getting for liquor, it is almost the lowest, and the consumption of liquor is, we all know, right?
Yes.
Punjabis are like known for their love for liquor. And it is just that, so do you think that this information can lead to a kind of awareness where we can almost force the governments rather than asking for our rights, right? It is almost like forcing them to do it now, because it's been so long that, there's the excise policy, and it's amazing that why we can't make money out of it if people are drinking so much. So do you think that can also lead, and almost, because here I'm not exactly asking for my right, I'm asking kind of forcing the government to do something, which is different from asking, we are asking them, no, we are telling them to do it now because of this awareness. So do you think that can also lead somewhere?
So there are so many different ways I want to answer this question. Let me try, and so that I don't forget them all. First,
because I must say, because I hope I was able to frame my question, because there were so many thoughts in my head also when I was asking you this, right? Because I wanted your thoughts on this.
So there are different aspects to your question. First of all, let's just talk about the question itself. Like you asked me this question, the correlation between the revenue coming from alcohol sales in India to the deaths related to spurious alcohol, to the badly needed reforms in the excise department in the Punjab government, and then relating all that together to the paying the salaries of the teachers in the education department in Punjab. By the way, the education department in Punjab has the largest budget because they have the largest number of employees they have to pay salaries to, right? Now, this question itself, how many people do you think will be interested in such a question? Because it becomes too complex. It just becomes too complex. And what happens is our leaders, our politicians, bureaucrats, everyone understands this. So that is why they never pick up these topics also, because it is just bad marketing. It's not easy to market these questions. Nobody wants to put in efforts to explain to people why what you're doing right now is affecting climate change. Right? So that is the first problem. Making information easy enough so that everyone can get on board with it. Because right now, if I tell people, this is a lot of floods are happening in Assam, how much does it exactly affect us? Not a lot. We feel bad for it, and the next thought is we can't do anything about it, and we forget it. Right? People have to get on board, so that information dissemination has to be changed completely. It has to be simplified, but not in a way where the other person feels that I'm a dumb person, I cannot understand complicated information, so I'm being giving these bits of information. No. Secondly, now let's talk about the correlation between different aspects. The correlation between the spending on medical research, the spending on education research, with how we have managed the pandemic. As Anurag said, we have done a few things right and few things here and there, but whatever it is, we are still not the worst in the world. Agreed. But what is the correlation between the countries which have done well? All right. Now, Hong Kong was already prepared for COVID. The only reason for that is not because Hong Kong is, a rich place and people have money and everyone's educated. No, not because of that. It's a very human behavioral thing. Hong Kong was ready for this because they had faced the SARS pandemic also. They were already prepared. They knew how to handle it. Even in India, you look at Kerala, they were the best prepared to handle a pandemic. In fact, most of the pandemics start from there because they are the first people to detect it. Right? So, the correlation doesn't happen in our complex systems right now. There is no single, system or place where this correlation of data is happening in a very scientific manner. Why? Because we keep on defunding our scientific research or sociological research in lieu of other politically sensitive things. Then coming to policy making, there is no check on the policy making procedure itself. Now, I'll take the example of Punjab and UP, and I'm going to talk about liquor here. In Punjab, there is a concept called MSP. I think we talked about it also before. So, MSP is the minimum selling price. So, if you buy a bottle of beer or a bottle of whiskey or whatever from any liquor shop in Punjab, it will have MSP rupees something something. So, on a bottle of beer, probably you will have MSP rupees 160. That 160 is the minimum price on which this bottle of beer should be sold. I'm talking about the regular 650 bottle, 650 ml bottle. But how much do you get it for? At least 220 rupees. So I was really surprised in 2016 when I came back to India in 2017 from Denmark, and like abroad, beer is very cheap. Okay, comparing with it with India, the same bottle would cost me 70 or 80 rupees in Denmark. Like Denmark had cheaper beer than India. And I went to the local liquor shop and I wanted to buy, my beer, and he asked me for 180 rupees or something. And at that time in 2017, I said, it's written over here on the sticker, MSP 120. I didn't know what MSP was. He said, yes, I know. It is 180 rupees. Do you want to buy it or not? So I got really pissed off. And one of our juniors from college, Anurag, she is a PCS officer in the excise department in Punjab, which is currently called the GST department. So I texted her, I took a photo of that beer bottle and I texted her, I said, this is happening. She said, thank you so much, because people don't tell us that these things are happening on ground. And then she did her research. She spent 2 days. She asked her bosses in Chandigarh. And the Chandigarh boss finally sent her a photograph of a confidential document from the Punjab government, which was written in Gurmukhi. So again, half of the people in Punjab will not understand it because it is written in Gurmukhi. And in that document, it was passed by the Akali government, I think in 2012 or 13, wherein they passed a new law that there will be MSP on the liquor bottles. The retailers can charge whatever they want.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
So there is no check on this. There is just no check on this. Now, taking the example of UP, all right, so this is one way of doing it. So this is like, according to me, this is systemic corruption of the policy framework. आपने पॉलिसी में ही डाल दिया है कि बॉस पॉलिसी गलत बनानी है, right?
Clear है कि ऐसा होगा, right?
Right. This is going to happen. So you put it in the policy framework only that there's a wrong law and nobody's going to change it. And that's exactly what I was talking about before also.
I know of, I think a lot of the liquor business happens through syndicates. So if you want to, organize a party,
yes,
you have to buy the syndicates if
yes,
you want to.
Yes. So, I mean, there are a lot of, things over there. So syndicates in India act just like lobbies in the US. At least lobbying is legal over there. Here, it all happens behind closed doors and everything. So, and so there's another aspect to it. Most of the businesses in India, a lot of those businesses, a huge percentage of those businesses are owned by politicians. So no politician is going to let go of money. So we have the worst of both worlds. We have capitalism, bad kind of capitalism, and then that bad kind of capitalism is being controlled by policymakers. So they don't want to listen to you. They don't want to do welfare of the people. So anyway, so let's talk about UP, where there is another aspect of it. UP, there used to be a Mayawati or an Akhilesh tax, and this is from a time when I used to live in Noida before 2014, before 2015. Now, Mayawati or Akhilesh tax used to be rupees 10 on every bottle of liquor. So if the bottle of liquor says rupees 350, then you will get it for rupees 360. And during election times, and it's not that it was hidden from anybody, all right? Because it's nowhere legally written, so people think, oh, it's hidden or nobody can create a case around it. During elections, the Election Commission of India, they will put notices outside every liquor shop in UP where they will clearly state you are not supposed to pay Mayawati tax or Akhilesh tax. So there is a particular department of the government of India, one of the strongest in the government of India, which knows exactly what is going on, the Election Commission of India. But it has no power to change it. So there is this isolation of departments. There is no correlation between these things which are happening, and this is what is needed. And this will only happen through people. And now coming to the last aspect of your question, like how can we change it? So again, I was having a discussion with Priyank Sharma, who's like the doctoral research fellow in education. And he talked about this very famous, like very, one of the most notable educators from our country. Nobody knows about him. His name is Dr. Krishnan Kumar. Only the educators know about him. And he talked about, like Priyank was having a discussion with Professor Krishnan Kumar in, I think, 2013 or 14. And Priyank said, why are we not changing things? And like general questions like how we ask each other. And Professor Krishnan Kumar, at that time, there was some, scam happening. One of the JEE or NEET papers was leaked. Okay. So they were conducting the exam again. Now, all the students who had not used the leaked paper, they said, why are you conducting the exam again? So they were out on the streets protesting. There were parents and students and doing everything. And Professor Krishnan Kumar was like, so I'm not talking about this verbatim because Priyank told me the story. This is third hand, I guess. He said, so people are protesting right now that this is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. And the government is listening. The Supreme Court is listening because people are protesting. But he said, why don't people protest about the fact that there shouldn't be no boards? Why do we have board exams in 10th? Right? Why are people not protesting about that? So protest also. So for most people, it is convenient. As I said, fear and convenience. It is convenient for people to give boards. But for a person coming from a poor background, an underprivileged background, who doesn't even have books to study, giving boards is crazy. They don't have tuitions. They don't have all these access to other information. For them, boards is a problem. And that's where Professor Krishnan Kumar said, even protesting is a privilege in India. Who died because of the spurious liquor consumption? The laborers. If they protest, is something going to happen? For the past 6 odd years, I mean, it's not only during Modi government regime, in fact, before that also, farmers have been continuously protesting. Farmers from Tamil Nadu, farmers from Maharashtra, dairy farmers from Maharashtra, farmers from other parts of the country. What is happening? Nothing has happened. The number of suicides in 2019 of farmers was the highest in our recorded history. Their protests don't matter. So whose protests actually matter? Like right now also, JEE NEET is going on YouTube. It's going like crazy. Okay. Either you are for taking JEE, like there should be JEE or NEET right now. There should not be JEE or NEET right now. The number of people on YouTube at least or on social media who are saying that JEE NEET should not be done is more than the people who are saying that JEE NEET should be done. All right. And we all saw that what happened with the Prime Minister Modi's Man Ki Baat, the number of dislikes that he had. That is the power of the internet. So these are the people who need to protest about the right things. And it is our responsibility, because we are part of that people, to protest about the right things in the matter which works. Only then we will be able to change policy, because ultimately at the end of the day, we are still a democracy. We still have the right to vote. If we tomorrow decide not to give anybody a vote, they will not be elected. The same thing is happening in the US, where the president is trying to systematically dismantle the US Postal Service, one of their oldest institutions. I think it's older than their independence also. He's systematically dismantling it because the voting has to be done by mail. In Brazil, when we talk about climate conservation, the worst kind of policies have been passed this year after Corona. And Amazon are the lungs of the planet. In Philippines, one of the largest news networks, all right, the biggest news network that Philippines had. For example, in India, we have obviously Doordarshan, but then, we have in NDTV, Aaj Tak and all, like at that level. It was closed. It was forced to close during COVID-19. So people cannot get right information. So when you said, does information change things? Yes, it does. And that is why these, a lot of people who have vested interests, they will always try to sabotage information for their own gain. They will not try to give it to you. Like, Aman, you're a lawyer yourself. And, we were having this discussion also that most of the law is created in such a way so that only the lawyers can understand it.
And with respect to information also, RTI is the best example. I mean, the kind of, I'm not here criticizing anyone as such, but it's just that if you are having more conditions for us to have information from the government, that clearly shows that there is something wrong in the policy making itself. I mean, why can't a citizen ask for more information? I mean, be it any government. I mean, I should know, right? So yeah, I agree to that.
Exactly. And not only the RTI, I mean, the Lokpal bill, it has not been passed. It was not passed under the UPA government. It has not been passed under the NDA government. And probably we don't know when it will be passed.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say an extension of what Aman said. Being a layman, I'm not from the law background, but why do we have RTI in the first place? Why cannot we have all information public by default? Yeah. Why even keep it private? Because ultimately they are government servants.
Yes.
Right? They're supposed to be serving us, not the other way around. So why do we have even this RTI thing? So when they were doing this reform, introducing the Right to Information Act, why didn't they just change the fundamentals of this thing?
The answer is pretty obvious, actually. I mean, you're asking the right questions, and I think we know the answers. Just for somebody who will probably watch this podcast, I was talking to this very, very experienced gentleman. He's currently in Hong Kong. He's part of this Asia Human Rights Commission. He did his master's in social work. I think it was social work. I don't remember the exact thing, from JNU. And his master's thesis was about human scavenging in India. All right. What is human scavenging? He explained in detail so that everyone had that effect, that what he was talking about. When one human with his bare hands collects the excreta of another human being, that is called human scavenging. All right. All Indian cities, 40% of gutter holes or manholes are uncovered in all Indian cities. 40%. And just imagine if that becomes a political mudda or a political pain point. And it has come up in news various times. In Mumbai, there were deaths because people just drowned in the potholes, all right, especially during monsoons. Then there have been car accidents because of it. There have been, children who get stuck. In fact, just a few days back, I read, I think it was somewhere from Rajasthan, that people, rescued a very small child from one of these similar situations. 40% of potholes are uncovered in Jalandhar, Anurag. Have we ever talked about it? And this is what RTI does. And this is what the leaders don't want you to read because, well, it just goes against their thing. Maybe they will solve it, maybe they will not solve it. But they don't want you to have that because information is power. After World War II, the biggest intelligence or the biggest weapon in the world was information. It was not nuclear weapons. And the Cold War was basically that. Who controls what information? Right now, we have that Cold War going on with our own leaders because they don't want you to know. Maybe for their some reasons, or maybe they also want you to know, but they don't know how to figure that out. Whatever it is, we have to help them, or we have to create awareness, and that's it.
So thanks a lot, Saurabh. I think Aman and I really enjoyed talking to you about so many topics and so many perspectives that could only come from the richness of experience, from the places you have traveled, and so on and so forth. But I think it has, more than that, it has been a pleasure for the both of us to interview you, to turn the tables on our own podcast. So with that note, I think we are good to conclude this, and we'll keep waiting for the second season.
Thank you so much. You guys asked amazing questions. Thank you, both of you, for doing this.